Welcome to Once Upon a Storybook. My name is Cynthia with Cynthia's Joyful Creations, and today we're going to look at another angel story from the book In the Arms of Angels by Joan Wester Anderson. Today's story is entitled Mother's Helper. The stars are the windows of heaven where the angels peek through. Old saying. Baby Scott was crying, and Lillian Taylor of Wheeling, Illinois, stood somewhat dazed beside the stove, warming his night bottle. It had been an exhausting day, and due to a blizzard and hazardous driving conditions, it had taken me almost 3 hours to drive home from work after picking Scott up from the sitter, Lillian says. Her husband Sam was working a night shift from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. at a new job and had been gone when she finally arrived. Midnight, their huge German shepherd had greeted her at the door, needing water and a backyard romp. Lillian was enjoying motherhood, but the logistics and physical fatigue were aspects of this new profession that she had not gotten used to yet. The snow was still falling, leaving a thick blanket across the neighborhood. She wondered whether Sam would be able to drive up their unshoveled driveway when he got home, if he got home. Forecasters were already calling the storm a major one and warning people to stay at their workplaces overnight. But Lillian would worry about that later. She went into Scott's room, picked him up, and changed him, then carried him to their favorite feeding place at the dining room table. From there she could see out the living room window. She was never fearful about being alone. Although Midnight was snoring in his corner, he would be instantly alert, barking loudly if anything out of the ordinary occurred. Lillian flipped on the large overhead glass fixture and started the baby's feeding. It was probably only a few minutes later when I heard a tapping at the front of the house. Was it Sam? Lillian looked toward the living room window and almost leaped out of her chair. There was a woman outside, apparently standing in the hedges. She was tapping on the glass, beckoning at Lillian to come to the window. I honestly thought she was a figment of my imagination, Lillian says. It was almost midnight, and I was so worn out that I just assumed nothing was there, and Midnight had not reacted at all. But a few minutes later, Lillian looked up again, and the woman was still motioning. I'm just seeing things, Lillian told herself. She also noted that the baby seemed to be taking a longer than usual time to be fed. She wished he would hurry, so she could lie down, get some sleep, and stop having hallucinations. She sighed. How could she be a good mother with an attitude like that? She looked up a third time, and the woman was still there. In fact, Lillian could see her more distinctly now, and she looked anxious as she continued to motion Lillian forward. For the first time, Lillian realized that the scenario was real. The woman was young, about her age, and appeared to be distressed. Was she lost or had her car broken down? I was a little apprehensive, but I couldn't just leave her there without finding out what she needed. Midnight was sitting up now, surveying the window with apparent interest. Oddly quiet. He usually barked at anything. What was going on here? Lillian went to the living room and laid Scott in his playpen with his bottle, then turned toward the window. At that moment, the dining room ceiling fixture exploded, sending fragments of glass and steel flying through the air. The pointed pieces stabbed the chair where she and Scott had been sitting just seconds before and littered the tabletop. Lillian stared at the wreckage, stunned. Just then she heard her husband's car in the driveway. She ran to the front door and flung it open. Sam was easing the slipping car to a stop. They let us go early, he told her. Why are you out here? There's a young woman at the front window who needs help. I didn't see anyone as I drove in. He got out of the car, his boots making deep imprints in the driveway snow. I'll go over there and take a look. But as he reported to Lillian a moment later, not only was there no one at the window, there were no footprints in the snow, only his own. But the woman had been so real. Wouldn't Sam have seen her if she ran across the lawn? Lillian pulled on her own boots and walked outside for a closer look. She could see Sam's boot prints very plainly. But in the area around the window and hedges, there was not a mark in that deep snow. My God, what happened to the chandelier? Sam was regarding the dining room with shock. Lillian went in. There was glass all over. The baby was safe in his playpen, and Midnight was snoozing again contentedly. For the first time, Lillian's knees began to shake. What a close call they just had. The baby could have been seriously injured, even killed. Glass in his eyes or hers. She looked at the shards and shuddered. Then suddenly Lillian understood. The figure at the window had not been in trouble. She and Scott had. Nor was the lady a flesh and blood woman, even though she looked like one, which was probably why Midnight had not barked at her. My parents had always told us kids that we had at least one angel to protect us, Lillian says, and I had believed that. Now she realized that either her or Scott's guardian angel had alerted her to the impending danger and moved them both out of harm's way. In the midst of that winter night, warmth flooded Lillian. She did not have to worry about being a perfect mother, for she was not the only one watching over Scott. She looked out the window, smiled at the stars, and went to find a broom. Well, thank you for joining me for this story, this angel story, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, be joyful, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.